You're listening to the Mind Manual Podcast, episode 13, Running a Belief Audit. Hello, friends, and welcome. Today, I want to encourage everyone to run a belief audit on any area of your life that isn't producing the results you would like or isn't generating a feeling within you that you don't like. We generally filter life through a lens of our beliefs. If we believe something to be true, our brain will tend to look for evidence to validate our view. And so it becomes this focus for us. This function is carried out by the reticular activating system, which connects the subconscious part of our mind with our conscious mind. It acts like a filter in our mind and controls the amount of unnecessary data that enters our field of consciousness. So we don't end up seeing the full picture. It is our version based on our beliefs. It's a process we all use to help us understand the world in which we live. The primal part of our brain loves certainty, which helps in making our environment more predictable. The more it can predict the elements and interactions in this world, the safer it can make us. This is one of the reasons why generally most of us will resist change or at least have a hard time in being comfortable with it. Our primitive brain has been delegated to keeping us alive, and change is going to represent uncertainty, which it doesn't like, because now it has to expend a lot of energy in assessing the threats and understanding how the new change will impact our status quo. Now, even if your status quo is something that's not particularly desirable to you, your primal brain will prefer it because it's familiar and it's already been proven to keep you safe. In the status quo, it can conserve energy and activate the autopilot because it's already done its reconnaissance and has deemed you to be safe. So in short, change puts our survival into question, at least for this instinctual part of our brain. For this reason, we tend not to pay too much attention to our beliefs because they've been proven with evidence by the RAS filter, and our primal brain understands this environment or view of the world. So it's safe and comfortable. To question our own beliefs would be to put our primal brain back on high alert. And if they're deeply ingrained beliefs, it's likely to go to the core of our identity, particularly if we've spent a lifetime orientating ourselves in a particular way in relation to that belief. Beliefs help define who we are. We use them to help express what we stand for, and therefore to mark our place in the world. So to challenge them can literally be a very disorientating and painful experience to go through. But when you come out the other side of it and adopt new beliefs that expand you and serve you far greater than the limiting beliefs we usually argue and fight for, you can start to make your life work in the areas that otherwise had you stumped in pain and suffering. I've recently experienced this unfolding process with two people I've been coaching. One is a long-suffering wife who believed that her husband was the source of her unhappiness and discontent in her life and their marriage. She had plenty of evidence and would highlight all the examples to support this belief. And as she continued on, I noticed the similar patterns appearing in other everyday instances that caused her to feel discontent and disappointment in having to do the things she felt obliged to do. These were as simple as taking the children in afternoon sports sessions, followed by having to cook the family meal, day in, day out. In other words, doing the daily grind. After I pointed out the way she was thinking about them, it opened up a totally different perspective where she could see how she had been creating her own pain. She had such a tight grip on her belief around all of this that it was her husband and what he would or wouldn't do, and the lineup of tasks and responsibilities she was burdened with, that she didn't even see that they were her beliefs. She thought she was just giving a narration of the facts, that it was the circumstances causing her discontent. Her reticular activating system, or RAS, was lining up all the evidence she needed to convince herself that what she believed in about her husband and family responsibilities was a truth. She believed it was her conditions or the other people that was creating the suffering she had been enduring for years. Her identity in relating to these beliefs had her being at the effect of, which places you in a role as a victim. When we approach it that way, we go and attribute the responsibility or give credit for the way we are feeling to someone or something else outside of ourselves. We give our power away to the circumstance or that person, and we remain at their effect in being the victim. The only way out of this model is to change the circumstance or the person. And for the most part, that never really works. Having to always control your mate or the situation will take its toll on you. And it doesn't really work for too long anyway. When I showed her how she was creating her own pain, it was a realization that she said felt like a slap in the face. And she felt that wound over the rest of the week. When a belief system is shattered, or you realize how wrong you had it all those years, and in some instances for a lifetime, the important thing is to remember to not go and make that mean that you're wrong as a person. And in terms of identity, she had her husband set up as the villain, and she was the damsel in distress, longing to be saved. But at the same time, she could see how liberating it would be in going from victim to creator and damsel to savior. This belief was the equivalent dragon snorting fire and brimstone that needed to be slayed in order to set her free. The other person had the belief that to rate in this world, you had to be skinny and beautiful. She commented that when she came across someone who she believed was prettier than her, it would drive her into wanting to prove she could be greater than, to the point of obsessing over the parts that she could control in working on her body and changing her appearance to become even more prettier, and therefore somehow rate even higher, which is ultimately a quest in trying to prove her worthiness. She was so invested in believing this was an extrinsic quality that was decided by people outside of herself, that she became stuck and exhausted in having to constantly compare herself with everyone else, and therefore having to constantly judge who was better and what was wrong with her and everyone else. And given perfection is only a perception in someone's mind, then it's never going to be right, because we can never control how someone will perceive something. This left her in a hopeless spiral of always finding evidence that she was never going to be right or worthy enough, because the next beauty would walk on by to prove her right. When I asked her, where did she get this belief from? She answered after a pause, from society. That's what social media had portrayed to her, which represented the belief of a society as a whole. I challenged her to think about what she wanted to choose to value, as opposed to just adopting what she perceived society valued. She had never turned her mind to it. She had spent all her young formative years in just absorbing the belief of others, unquestioned in any way, of the real intrinsic value that was being offered in return for taking on this belief. At the end of the day, it's not about what's right or wrong. It becomes a question of what serves you or not. The results of having this belief were clearly not serving her in producing an outcome that she was happy with. Our beliefs are going to be a deeper driver in how we show up for life and the filter we see it through. The thoughts we have about these beliefs, or so-called truths that we unknowingly adopt, will determine which way we orientate ourselves in life, in thought, word, and deed. So I think it's important to bring these beliefs into the light for you to study and decide whether they are actually serving you and will produce the results that you want. The other thing to cross-check is whether you love your reason for having them. So in this example, if it's a high priority for you to conform with what society has deemed to be a mark of success, then this would be a reason that you'd be happy with. But if you decide that belief isn't serving you, then it's an opportunity to consciously choose an alternative belief that you want to align with. This is a process of questioning all of it, the source of your beliefs, their focus as a filter, and the results that they produce. Are you happy with the way they have you showing up and moving through life? If not, then choose differently and choose wisely. Choose them like your life depends on it, which it does. It will be the difference between living by default and unaware of what's creating your reality, or living intentionally and directing it in a way that serves you. This really is some great work to be doing that could completely change the trajectory of your life. So have some fun with it and stay open to all the possibilities. Have a beautiful day.